repossession wars and all of that, guys with guns going up. Was that true, or is that just for show?
It's heart wrenching. It's hard. Ford Motor went to court to try to obtain the right to use their GPS tracking devices that are on all of their cars as a repossession tool.
Welcome back to another episode of Law Unpacked. I'm your host, Sean DeVries, and today we have an insightful conversation ahead with Mike Setzer from National Collateral Services. Mike has extensive experience in the repossession industry and now runs a company that helps individuals discreetly surrender their vehicles. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for asking me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Now, Mike, you started out as an owner of a repossession company. Could you tell me how that got you into this business, or how'd you get into that business, repossessing cars?
Well, yeah, that's a long story. It's just like I had to reinvent myself, and over the course of my life, I've had to sort of reinvent myself several times. My wife and I owned a gas station back in the mid '80s with a towing component, and it failed for various reasons. But when it failed, I was left with a tow truck and skills as far as talking to customers and running that truck. And my wife said that you maybe you could repossess cars. And at the time, I was a little skeptical about that, but there were opportunities. So I went out and took my skills to one of the local companies, and I hit the ground running. I enjoyed it. The give and take, the excitement, followed by moments of there was moments of terror and hours of boredom, but I did pretty well at it. And within a year, we had our own company going. We did that for 22 years, and that's how I took the skills of talking to customers at a service station with a tow truck. I put that together for the repossession end. Then in 2008, there was a shuffling of all the repossession companies. It had nothing to do with, I believe, the crash in 2008. I think it was just a matter of timing. The larger clients, we did work for the major clients, Chrysler, Ford. There was National City Bank around, a local bank here that was bought by PNC. So we lost them to whatever PNC program had. But Chrysler and Ford both went with a national program through the auctions. So they no longer went directly to us repossession companies, and the auctions took a lot of the gravy off the top. And by the time the money trickled down to the repo man, we weren't making half the money we used to make in the mid 90s. So the writing was on the wall for me that I had to figure out something else to do. In the last 4 or 5 years of my repossession work, though, I was paying attention to some of the trends that were going on with our clients. And I did notice that there were cars that were sitting in people's driveways for an extended period of time.
We've seen I think there's TV shows and
Oh,
YouTube shows, repossession wars and all of that, guys with guns going up. Was that true, or is that just for show?
that's just for show. That those shows actually did a lot to ruin our industry, because they every guy with a pickup truck and a chain thought he could do the job, and next thing you know, everybody was undercutting each other. They started to cut each other's throats to get the jobs, and the lenders really didn't care about the quality of the people in the driveway. I started railing against that. I actually wrote an article that was published in a national repossession publication regarding the repossession is the most intimate contact a lender will have with their customer in their entire history. You can walk into the office of a bank, and you can borrow money, you can shake hands with a guy, you do all those things. But when they send a repossessor to your driveway at 3 a.m. to take a car away, that's a very intimate contact with your family, with your neighbors, and they didn't take it seriously. As a repo man, I can control how that repossession is going to go. I can make it smooth and happy, or I can let the whole neighborhood know that you've got a problem. It all depends on who I am and what I am. And I tried to bring a bit of humanity to the job, because I understand it's a tough time. I've been through tough times, and the banks just at the time, the banks I dealt with, they just didn't care. They wanted a $5 cheaper repossession. So, so a lot of those shows are all just, if I had that much confrontation in my job, I would have found another job. Out of the 20,000 repossessions that I did over a course of my history, I had 4 guns pulled on me. I had 2 actual physical altercations with people. And I know anybody said, wow, you had 4 guns pulled on you. That's, but that's a good record, I think. And I got all those cars. Every car where a gun was pulled on me, I ended up getting the car because I don't shut up. I just keep talking until the guy puts his gun away. But yeah, those shows really did a lot to bring our business down, I think, the quality of our workmen.
Well, that's interesting. I think many of our clients definitely face repossession 1, 2, sometimes multiple times. But I what I've found in while doing this podcast, a lot of my guests have all been there. They've all had a point in their life that they need to make a change. And I know bankruptcy is a fresh start, and that's definitely one way. And it's interesting that now you service the bankruptcy industry.
Yeah. If you're self-employed, you're going to be broke sometime. It's just going to happen. And this is my 4th business. I've been self-employed my entire life. And all that tells me is that the first 3 businesses died at some point, and I had to do something else. So as I segued from the repossession industry into this job, there was some things that happened in the repo industry that taught me what to do here. So
you're talking about segue, and this is a great time. So what inspired you to make the transition from repossession to start this business at National Collateral Services?
Well, in 2000, about around 2003 or so, I started really paying attention to the situations that we were put into as repossessors, because all we would get would be a piece of paper over the fax, and we'd go out and do our thing with no concern for what brought us to this point with the client. And we had several banks who, I guess you're more familiar with it than I am. It would be like a Chapter 7 pass-through where your client would say, I'd like to keep the car and continue to make payments, and the bank would allow that sometimes. And so what would happen was they'd be making payments on it. Of course, the bank's not servicing the loan. They're merely applying the money to the balance after the bankruptcy. And then at some point, the bank would just send us out to repossess the car without warning. So it was putting us in a more dangerous situation because the client thought he was current, thought he was building some sort of a credit or equity in that car for use after bankruptcy, and the bank had no intentions of letting them keep that car.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're talking about is what we call a reaffirmation agreement, where a client gets to essentially sign that loan saying that they're going to continue to make payments, and then they get that those credit payments. But what you're saying is that they still continue to do that, but they never actually did that reaffirmation. Then the bank comes in and picks that up.
Right. Well, maybe it's just one of the local banks I did work for up here in the northeast Ohio area, but they would do it without a contract, and it wasn't a formal reaffirmation from out of the bankruptcy. It was more of a, okay, we're gonna let you keep that car because there wasn't enough value in it for them to repo, but they would allow the client just to pay it down like he's renting the car, and at some point that the amount owed was less than the value of the car. And at that point, they would send me out to go repossess it. So everybody was shocked that I was in the driveway. And I had more altercations with those kind of things because the guy maybe just made the payment on Monday, and here I am on Wednesday taking his car. So that I don't know, that kind of stayed with me, that the banks were not acting always in the best interest of the clients. So the story that brought me into this business, though, I had a repossession out of a bankruptcy. Went to the gentleman's house. I always did those in the daytime. I would knock on the door, leave a card. I wasn't sneaking up on anybody's Chapter 7 surrender. And my car was in the driveway. The gentleman came to the door, and I said, I'm here for this car. And he said, what about another car? There was a second car sitting there. Well, that was a different bank. I didn't have that loan. I didn't have that order. And I took my car and left. Well, 3 months later, I'm in the same neighborhood for one of his neighbor's cars, and that second car was still sitting there. I just went up and knocked on his door, and I asked him if I could take that car off your hands for free. Would you let me have it? And he says, well, let me get the keys. And I said, wait, I don't have an order for it, but let me get my ducks in a row, and I'll get back to you. So I went to a local bankruptcy attorney, and I had an appointment. I threw a $100 bill on his desk, and I said, give me $100 of advice on how to do this. And we sat and we kind of brainstormed. I still have the legal pad with my notes on it. So I went from a blank sheet of paper, and I made notes about what to do, the pitfalls, what not to do. And I went back and picked up the gentleman's car, and I impounded it. Basically, I ran it through my system, learning every step of the way. And I ended up selling the car. We titled it and sold it, and I made some money. And the light went off over my head that, if I can do that here, I can basically do it everywhere if there's enough value in the car. So I started the process of getting the word out to bankruptcy attorneys around the country. One of the attorneys I met was Richard Nemeth. He's a Cleveland attorney. At the time, he was the Ohio chair for NACPA, and he invited me to come to the NACPA convention. The first one I went to was back in, had to be 13 years ago in New York City.
And real quick, for those that that are listening and don't know what NACPA is, kind of tell our guests who NACPA is or what NACPA is.
Well, NACPA is the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys, and those are the bankruptcy attorneys whose entire practice is steeped in the consumer side. They don't represent the lenders. They don't represent anybody else except for the people filing Chapter 7s and 13s. So it was a good fit for me. And we hit the ground running back in New York. I got a lot of clients out of it. We've been to every convention except for one since in the COVID year. We didn't go to that convention. And it's been a good fit for us. And now Attorney Nemeth, I guess, is the national chair of NACBA. So it's good to see him. He's getting ready to retire now. That was 15 years ago. So he's been a good friend and a mentor. I call him up. He doesn't bill me for the time, which is very nice, but I'll call him up once in a while and ask him an ethical question. And he keeps me on the straight and narrow because at the end of the day, I'm not an attorney. I'm reaching into the statutes. I'm reaching into the law and earning money, but I don't want to do anything that would jeopardize anyone's bankruptcy position or cause any grief for the attorney that refers the vehicle to us. So I try to tread lightly as far as what I'm doing here.
And so tell us exactly what are you doing? What does that process look like?
Okay, well, there's several different kinds of cars or vehicles. Now we've spread out. We're doing tractor trailers. We do boats. I've got several boats in our lot, motorhomes and campers. So your client files bankruptcy and wants to surrender the car. If they've had a very an adversarial role with the bank over the course of time while they were being collected on, they may not want to deal with a bank or a repossessor at a random time showing up at their house. As I said before, the repossessor controls that situation. Once he gets an order, the bank doesn't tell you to show up at 3 p.m. and ask politely. They just say, get the car. So my service, we can pick up the car discreetly at the client's request. We can pick it up at a third-party site so the neighbors don't know what's going on. And we put the car in our impound. And when we notify the lien holder, and the lien holder can come and get it picked up from us. And we do that all at no cost to the client. The lien holder bears the cost of the tow and repossession.
Well, it sounds like you saw an opportunity to create something that not only solved an issue, but also brought more dignity to an otherwise difficult process for many people.
Yeah, it's a tough time for people, especially if they've gone through the hand wringing you have to go through to file bankruptcy. I was when my repossession company failed. I had a lot of debt. I had trucks. I had just had a lot of debt we had accumulated. I didn't see that coming, that failure coming, and I considered bankruptcy. But we worked our way through it without filing. But it's got to be tough at the end of that. And there's illnesses. There's all sorts of things that cause people to walk into your office and file. that's heart wrenching. It's hard. People don't ever plan on filing bankruptcy. I mean, I guess there's a few people out there that use it as a business tool, but for the most part, the regular person that you see, it's the end of a long road, a long, painful road. And I try to make it a little smoother for them.
Well, I can imagine when you were doing the repossessions that trying to balance the lenders and you mentioned that there's a lot of debt that seems to be like maybe the biggest issue with repossession companies at this point. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes. And I had 4 truck payments, and I had a large house payment. I had just accumulated a lot of stuff, but we were earning good money and living relatively large for a while, and then suddenly when that gets cut off, it's really hard to just replace.
Yeah. So tell me, how did those challenges really bring into how you operate here at National Collateral Services?
Well, 2008 was again, it was a very difficult time. I struggled for about a year trying to replace those large clients that left me. But there's who are you going to replace them with? They were the main suppliers of repossession orders in our area, and so that sort of fell by the wayside as I started to get some attorneys to respond. I sent letters out to local attorneys. And I'll never forget the first call I got from a local attorney. He had a Dodge Caravan with an elderly woman who was sitting at her apartment complex for about 6 months, and the lender wouldn't pick it up. So we went and picked it up, and I learned that the lenders are using the client's driveway for free storage. As the attorney, you would recommend to your client, got to keep your insurance going until they pick it up. So the car is insured, it's stored, it's at no cost to the bank, and when the bank's good and ready, they'll come out and pick it up. And I've seen them use that. They'll pick it up at the first of next month because they have a monthly budget for their repossessions, and they sort of use that free storage so they can smooth out the number of repossessions they're bringing in every month. They average them out. And your client maybe is moving, maybe there's an HOA, they can't have the car picked up, sitting there. They have a limited amount of space in their driveway. And there's all sorts of situations where these cars are just left in the lurch. Just last week, we picked up a 2023 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter. This lady purchased it, and there was a health issue immediately after they purchased it. And the car, or that vehicle, sat in her driveway for 8 months, and they couldn't get the lender to come off the dime and pick it up. So it's now in our lot, and I will deal with him. So there's that. Then there's cars with no value. I'm sure you've had clients come in. They've got a 2002 Taurus with 300,000 miles on it. The bank's not going to pick that up, and it's just sitting there, and the bank's not going to give you the title. So legally, you can't just throw the car away, or you'll possibly have some problems. The local towing companies are hesitant to pick it up because they've got to do the paperwork that I do every day, and sometimes it's a daunting task for a tow truck guy. So I work with local companies and I help them pick the vehicles up, and using the local statutes, like you're in Florida, there's different statutes for every state on how those vehicles need to be picked up. California's off the books. It costs $500 to pick up a $300 car out there in California. They've got that all messed up. But Florida's an easy state. Massachusetts a little different. You have to pay property tax on the car if it's sitting in your driveway. So we'll pick those up locally. Those lesser valued cars. But if the car's worth $3,000 or $4,000, and that's really nothing in today's money, we will pay at our expense to pick it up in Florida and bring it to my central lot in Indiana and store until we can either get the title or give it back to the bank.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue that I've seen with my clients before we met at NACPA. I could tell you, I remember clients that had that car just sitting in their driveway for 3-4 months and never even be contacted by the bank. And now they're, due to the bankruptcy estate, they're expected to have insurance on it. The state requires them to have insurance on it. So not only are they sitting there waiting for the lender to do something, they're paying monthly insurance that they just filed bankruptcy, so they don't have the money to pay.
Right, exactly. And we're fully insured. From the moment that vehicle goes onto our trailer or on our truck to take it out of there, we're fully insured. And it's in a very secure lot, and we've got security cameras and everything. So they don't have to worry about that vehicle down the road. Um, we've also seen, especially down in Florida, we picked up a lot of cars down in Florida where people live in the little gated communities, and there's no extra room for cars there. You've got one space you're given, or maybe possibly two. Um, and so we try to get those out quickly. And I use, sometimes I'll use local towing companies to pick up the car. Like right now, the client calls me at 9 a.m. and I've got it out of there by noon. And then I'll pick it up from the local guy and get it onto our process.
Well, it's clear that your earlier experiences really taught you the value of empathy in the industry. I want to dive a little deeper into talk to me about how you allow people to discreetly surrender their vehicle. So you mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned that they could go to a third party neutral site. What does that look like?
We'll use a local Walmart parking lot, because some of our trucks and trailers are pretty large. We sometimes have a 3-car trailer or an 8-car trailer that's picking the vehicle up. So I'll find out from the client, do you have a large shopping center or within a couple of miles of your house? And usually they do. I mean, unless they live way out in the country, and those folks really don't worry too much about it. But if you're living in a more congested community, you don't want your neighbors to see a tow truck taking your car away. And we'll just meet them at an assigned time at that parking lot and put the car on our trailer from there. We have, I can email them receipts that the vehicle has been surrendered to our company, so that their peace of mind that they have something in their hands that shows that vehicle has been surrendered, at least the beginning process of the surrendering is done. And it's incumbent upon me to get the letters out to the banks as soon as possible, because I have limited space too. But that's how we do it. We'll do it at the client's discretion. We can pick it up in another city if they want to take it over to their sister's house and have us pick it up there. Whatever works for them.
Well, it sounds like that's a pretty thoughtful approach on how to be able to be discreet.
Yeah. Because again, the repossessor shows up at 3:00 in the morning. You wanted to give the car up. Your the 341 hearing came and went, and you represented your client and said, yes, we're going to surrender it. Just contact us. Well, they don't do that. And so the repo man gets the order, and he shows up at 3:00 in the morning with a noisy tow truck and backs in the driveway and drags the car out. And when all that can be avoided, there's just no reason for it. The one repossession client that has the discretion to set up the where, when, and how their car is given back is the Chapter 7 client. Out of all the other people, the other people are just 2 or 3 months behind, and that's a free for all out there for that. But as far as the Chapter 7 client, they've got control over how this is done, and I'm a tool towards that control.
Well, I think we've learned a lot through our episodes on how controlling your life after bankruptcy. This is just one of those aspects that really allow you to control that situation and control really how people view you and help manage the embarrassment that comes with a repo man showing up at your house at 3 a.m.
Right. You're after the Chapter 7. You're making a fresh start. You're trying to get everything together, and then suddenly, boom, you've got all this other activity going on. And as an attorney, you're getting calls 3 and 4 months later from a client that you've put in the file drawer and you're done with, saying, why have they picked up my car? So now you've got to go back, find out what's going on, spend some of your time on a case that's already done. And so I'm saving the attorney's time, I would assume, just getting this thing done and out of the way.
Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you that once we know that the car's been picked up, that they're surrendering as the attorney aspect, that's one more step that we know we don't need to continue to try and follow up on.
Right. And I actually work with the lenders. I try to be fair with them. Some of them are nonplussed by my interaction with them, but I'm fair and honest with them. We give them back the vehicles in good shape. If there's any situations as far as making keys, a lot of times we'll make keys at no extra cost to the banks. just to because it's easier to move them around our lot than to go in there and swing a tow truck around and move them around. So we've had very little pushback from the lenders in what we do.
It's what I'm seeing is a win-win here, but you're really, for my clients, trying to avoid those embarrassing or difficult moments that make a huge difference in a client's experience. And given today's economic environment, you want to try and minimize any pain for the client. This is one way that you can do that.
Absolutely, give them a chance to use that fresh start that you're offering them in their Chapter 7. We pick up some Chapter 13 stuff as well down after a couple of years, but usually though I don't, as a non-attorney, I don't understand the situation why a Chapter 13 would end up in our place, except for the fact that most of the ones we pick up are run out. They're pretty much, the cars are run out, and there's not value enough for it to be repossessed even at the end of the 13. And it doesn't run, and the client just says, I want it out of my driveway.
So I want to switch gears just a little bit. Given today's economic environment, have you noticed any major shifts in how repossessions are handled between lenders and debtors?
I have seen that the lenders are letting the debtors get a little bit farther behind. Just maybe I don't believe it's out of the goodness in their hearts or largesse. The auctions are full of cars. There's literally a glut of cars, and the value is down in the auction side because of that volume of cars. So they're trying to work with the debtors as much as they can to hang on to those vehicles. But repossessions are up. The repossession companies that pick up cars at our lots are telling me that they're busy. I don't know as far as how much money they're making. It's not like it's not like the old days where we were making all the money. Now they've got to share it with the auctions and the forwarding companies. But I have seen a little bit of a slowdown in how long it's taking them to pull the trigger and actually pick these cars up.
It's been an interesting cycle because if you recall last year, middle of 2023, there was such a shortage of used vehicles on the lot. So and the used car prices were skyrocketing, and the trustees were loving them because, a car that was only worth $2,000 is now worth $4,000, and it sounds like that trend is changing a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. If you recall the program that the federal government got involved in, where they were actually destroying the engines and transmissions on used cars to try to boost the value up back during COVID. All those cars are gone, and now we're into a different, like you said, a different cycle now. But sales are slow at the dealerships. From what I've talked to several dealers about this. Our used car component, because we do end up titling quite a few cars that are left at our lot, is slow. And we've had to make concessions price wise to get those things out on the market and get them sold. So it's a cyclical thing, and wait around long enough, it's going to change.
Well, so looking at today's landscape, what are some of the new challenges that you're seeing emerge in the repossession space?
Well, it's really gone high tech now. Lenders, some of the lenders actually require you to put a GPS tracker on your repossession truck so that there's no more fudging that you went by somebody's house looking for the car. They know where your truck's been. I don't think I would ever be comfortable doing that in my business, but I don't have to do that. I'm not in that business any longer. But there's so many tracking devices, and Ford Motor went to court to try to obtain the right to use their GPS tracking devices that are on all of their cars as a repossession tool, and the court ruled that out. They said, no, you can't use those. Now, I don't know if there's anything going on in the background that they're doing, but the court actually ruled against Ford in that. General Motors, the same thing with the OnStar program they have. They wanted to use OnStar as a tracking device so that the repo man would know exactly where your car's at and what it's doing. And the court ruled against them for that, at least for now. So but we used to have so many different even in 2008, I had several lenders that had tracking devices on the cars. We would just log onto our laptop in our truck, and I could follow your car down the road when you parked it and walked away from it. We were right there to take it. Now we have license plate readers. There's spotter cars that go out and read the license plates, and when it pings on your computer, that car is out for repo, and we can go pick them up. So it's a brave new world when it comes to this. You're going to have a real hard time hiding your car if it's out for repossession.
Well, I know a lot of cities and counties actually have those license plate readers on stoplights now, and they can oftentimes sell that data to these repossession companies to help find these vehicles. It's
Well,
to me,
yeah.
it's a breach of it's always Big Brother's always watching. Now they can come and pick it up that much quicker.
Well, I have a quick story to tell you about that. We had a vehicle that came in from the lender was Credit Acceptance. They did not contact us. It was a 2-year-old Kia Forte. It sat at our lot. We gave them several months to pick it up. They didn't, so we titled it and sold it. I sold it to a gentleman who gave it to his daughter. He called us one Monday morning and said last night a repossessor took their car. So I contacted the local police in that city, and I asked them who contacted them about the repo, and they gave me the company name. I called them up, and I told them that they don't have a title of that car. I emailed them a copy of our clear title, and then I had a supervisor from Credit Acceptance call me, and they were apologetic, and they brought the car back. They did not do their due diligence. They lost the car over a year ago, and then they still had it out for repo and let it get picked up. But the reason it got picked up was the local police department had a license plate reader, which pinged onto that VIN number, and they sold that information. So they're taking our taxpayer dollars to buy this equipment and selling it to private parties to go against the citizens of that city. I don't think that's correct either. I really don't think the city should be involved in selling those to private parties.
No, I definitely agree, and like I said, it's there's other ways to make tax dollars if they're selling that, and obviously we're paying our fair share of taxes, and don't utilize that to come after citizens that are.
Well, they brought the car back. Luckily, it wasn't damaged. I told the client, or actually the owner's father who bought the car from us, I said, inspect that car thoroughly just to make sure, because they had no right to touch it. But it was back within an hour after my call because they didn't own it.
Well, good thing it didn't happen, when they were on vacation or at 3 a.m. because at that point in time, it'd be hours before they who knows, it could have been at auction already.
Right. And it was just crazy about it, though, that they did not even check to see if they still had a good lien on it. We had stripped the lien from that almost a year prior, and they're still out repossessing it. So with all the new technology, though, it really is hard. Unless even buy here, pay here lots, you can buy a 10-year-old car. They'll put a tracker on it. Those trackers are inexpensive, and they're easy to install. They hide them down in the wiring. We found several of them at our lot, or we'll get a call from a repo company that we're pinging a car at our lot that we picked up from a client, and that's why I have fences and gates, because they'll just come and take it.
That's and how do they have the right to be able to add a tracker to those vehicles? Is it typically in the paperwork that they're when you sign and buy the car? Or?
Yes, it's like paragraph 38 on page 12 of your contract is down there, that we reserve the right to place a tracking device. And a lot of times they'll have a place where the client has to initial when they're signing all the contracts to buy the car. They'll have to initial that that's okay. And the buy here, pay here clients, especially, they're desperate to get a car. They just need to get a car to get back and forth to work or live their life. So they'll initial in anything. And it's like buying a cell phone. You don't know what you're signing. There's so many things in the contract that if I read it, and as an attorney, when you read it, you cringe, but you have to sign it or you don't get the phone.
Sure. So Tell me, are you utilizing any of this technology? And obviously not trackers, but what technology have you used to make your job a little easier?
Actually, no, none. I'm old school. I mean, uh, it's a one-on-one conversation as we're having here with the client. I try to treat them with kid gloves. We go out of our way to work with the client. We work for them, not the banks. It's not so. My technology is very simple. It's a phone, a computer. Now we do have when I do the lien searches back in the day, back when I started in 2009. I did not have the capability of doing an individual lien search on a vehicle online. Now there are companies that I actually have a subscription to, where I can go in, put the VIN in, and it'll tell me what state it's licensed in, and it will do the lien search right now. Several states are not involved in it yet; they haven't enrolled, but about 45 of the contiguous states are in it, and it's really made it much easier to get these things going and do my process.
Well, as we get ready to wrap up, I've got just a couple final questions for you. What
Sure.
advice do you have to give to debtors that are thinking about surrendering their vehicle?
After the 341 hearing, pull your personal property out of it. Don't leave garage door openers. Don't leave jewelry, any of your stuff. If you're still going to drive the car until it's repossessed, pretend it's a rental car and don't have your personal property in it. Secondly, be prepared if you don't use my service for the repossessor to come at his discretion, which could be during your kid's birthday party. Which I have done back in those days. Gone to a house and there's all the guests are over there, and I'm taking the guy's car right in front of him, and it was. But yeah, that's an old story. But just to be prepared for it for the car to be gone any day. Secondly, the lenders are not your friends. The lenders are in it for themselves. It's an adversarial role. I'm not saying to make them enemies. I'm just saying to keep them at arm's length and don't trust them. I just take everything they say and what they're planning on doing with your vehicle with a grain of salt. And just be careful. Be aware that car is going to be gone one day with no foreknowledge, or your neighbor's going to be standing there with a cup of coffee laughing about your car getting towed by the repo man. So just be prepared for that after the 341 hearing, whether or not you say, okay, we're going to surrender the car. We're happy to surrender. The keys are on the dashboard. Come and get it. It doesn't mean he's going to show up at a reasonable time.
Well, I know you work with a lot of attorneys, and that's a lot of your referrals. But if a consumer wants to directly reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
They can go to our website. It's www.surrendermycarnow.com. It has a link on it where they can fill out all their information. Usually the clients get these referrals from the attorney instead of just going directly to me. But they fill out the information. It goes to my dispatcher, who then sends out the driver or makes the arrangements with the client to pick the vehicle up. We picked up boats in the water, out of the water. We picked up motorhomes that have been in storage for a year. The gentleman's paying storage on a motorhome, waiting for a lender to pick it up, and we'll go out and pay that storage actually and pick it up. But that's the best way to get a hold of us. They can call us at our 800 number, and that's all on our website. So it's Surrender My Car Now.
SurrenderMyCarNow.com. And
Yes.
you operate in all 50 states. Is that accurate?
In all 50 states. I picked up one in Canada. That was fun. But yeah, usually it's all 50 states. We got one out of Alaska, which was really expensive to get down here. But $2,500 later, it showed up at our lot, and the bank abandoned it. We sold it for $4,000. So I made enough to go out to dinner about.
There you go. Last question. Anything else you believe the listeners on the show should know before we disconnect today?
Well, my closing thoughts are that bankruptcy is hard. It's a hard decision to come to, but it's also a way to cleanse yourself of some mistakes of the past. And I think that our company enables you to do that with a clean slate and a clear mind, and we can do it without any more fanfare. You don't have to put it with any more abuses from the lenders or their collection centers. So that's always been my position on it, is we work for the client, and we treat them as well as possible.
Well, being able to surrender your car with dignity is something that I always want to advise my clients, and I think it's great what you're doing. And to all of our listeners today, thank you for tuning in. I'm Sean DeVries. This is Law Unpacked. Until next time, don't forget to follow, like, or give us some comments and feedback. Take care.